Hello and welcome to Bad Break 7 and CricTracker present Runneeti. It's a clash between Sri Lanka and Australia that we'll be discussing about in detail. And for that, we've got Stuart Law and Wasim Jaffer. Australia, remind you, lost their first clash, the lung opener, by a mammoth margin, while Sri Lanka have strung together some sort of momentum with three back-to-back wins from the group stage heading into the Super 12. वसीम सबसे पहले ऑस्ट्रेलिया का जिक्र करते हैं। ये एक तरह का कर्स शायद है डिफेंडिंग चैंपियंस का, बिकॉज इससे पहले भी हमने देखा है अभी तक दो बार ही ऐसा हुआ है जब डिफेंडिंग चैंपियंस सेमीफाइनल्स तक की भी जगह बना पाई हो।
Well, I think मेघना इससे पहले कोई भी T20 वर्ल्ड कप कोई होस्ट नहीं जीता है और कोई भी अपना टाइटल डिफेंड नहीं कर पाया। इट हैज हैपेंड इन द 50 ओवर, बट T20 वर्ल्ड कप में ऐसा नहीं हुआ है एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया हैवंट वन द T20 वर्ल्ड कप येट। तो वो एक बॉक्स उनको टिक करना है। तो ऑब्वियसली एंड दे आर प्लेइंग इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया, इट पुट्स लिटिल बिट मोर प्रेशर। और उसके अलावा दे हैव लॉस्ट द फर्स्ट गेम, बट दे विल बी हैप्पी they are playing at Perth, which is their own territory. They'll probably excel in those conditions. But sometimes I feel losing that first game sometimes help you. If you remember in the Asia Cup, Sri Lanka lost the first match and how they came back. So sometimes it gets the team together, and they turned out to be a good unit after that. Sometimes it wakes you up. But you'll expect Australia to bounce back hard. It's a must-win situation, and that's what happens in the ICC event. Suddenly you lose one game, and you feel like you could be out, and it's a must-win situation. But you'd expect Australia to come back hard.
Stuart, I really liked how Wasim just hammered in the fact that defending champions and also hosts have never won a T20 World Cup. But your response to the fact that overall Australia know how to peak at the right time, and also the fact that they have got the pedigree.
Yeah, one thing you can't do with Australians is you can't, well, Australian cricket teams, you can't count them out of any World Cup contest. They've won a lot of World Cups in the 50 over format. They've only won one in this format, but they started to play some good cricket in the UAE, and that really galvanised the team together. They haven't had many changes. They've had a couple, but not many changes from that winning team to this winning team or this squad. It's a massive ask, though, to not only get beaten by New Zealand, but get beaten by 89 runs, which is a hammering. And to our little brother, across the ditch, that's embarrassing for the players, and I know they'll be hurting. But the good thing is they haven't had to sit around for a long time to wait to get back out there, and they've got Sri Lanka in Perth on a fast bouncy wicket, which is exactly where Australia want to play.
Exactly where Australia want to play, and exactly with the stats that they boast against Sri Lanka. Let's have a look at how the heads-to-heads fared. That is how Australia have fared in the past against Sri Lanka. It's 3-1. तो काफी डोमिनेंट रही है ऑस्ट्रेलिया की टीम श्रीलंका के खिलाफ पिछले 4 मुकाबले, उससे पहले के भी आंकड़े अगर उठाकर देखें। हमने वेन्यू का मेंशन किया वसीम की, किस तरह से पर्थ पे ये मुकाबला होने वाला है। फास्ट बाउंसी पिच होने की उम्मीद है, लेकिन जो 2 अंतरराष्ट्रीय मुकाबले इस वेन्यू पे इस साल हुए हैं, वो जो आंकड़े निकाल कर देते हैं काफी कंफ्यूज कर देते हैं।
जी हाँ, बिल्कुल। आई मीन ये सारे आंकड़े ऑब्वियसली हिस्ट्री है। जब गेम स्टार्ट होगा तो एक डिफरेंट माहौल होता है, डिफरेंट प्रेशर होता है। ऑब्वियसली आप कहोगे कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया फेवरेट्स है, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं, क्योंकि उनकी कंडीशंस है। ये कंडीशन में यू एक्सपेक्ट ऑस्ट्रेलिया टू प्ले बेटर, बट श्रीलंका को यू कांट अंडरस्टिमेट। दे आर द एशिया कप चैंपियंस, और नमीबिया के हारने के बाद में दे हैव won 3 in a row, and they've gelled well as a team. They've got a young team and they've performed well, even with missing so many players. Chamira नहीं थे, उसके अलावा काफी दूसरे प्लेयर नहीं थे, निशांका नहीं थे, but they have played well. So you can't expect it's going to be an easy game, even though the stats favor Australia, but you would expect this Sri Lanka team to fight.
As neutral fans, of course, that's what we'd be wanting, a cracker of a clash. But then let's have a look at the points table because the first game that Australia featured in wasn't a cracker of a clash. Pretty lopsided क्योंकि of course न्यूजीलैंड ने बड़े मार्जिन से ऑस्ट्रेलिया को हराया. और स्टुअर्ट अगर यहाँ पे हम देखें पॉइंट्स इफ यू लुक एट द नेट रन रेट ओवर हियर स्टुअर्ट
Mm.
न्यूजीलैंड because they did defeat Australia by that huge margin, the net run rate is pretty bad at the moment. Australia languishing at the bottom of the table. So the pressure is on Australia to turn around, not just in terms of points, but also in terms of net run rate.
Yeah, I think calling it pretty bad is an understatement, really. There, the net run rate it can be crucial. Now, Australia will need their net run rate to improve significantly. They could go through the next, number of games. They could go through undefeated from here to the end and still not qualify. So they've got to make inroads in early to that net run rate. So today is a great opportunity. To whether you bat first and put a big score on the board and then bowl Sri Lanka out, or do you send them in and then chase down in knowing exactly what you need to do to get your run rate up? That's the question that Australia would have had posed to them quite a few times over the last couple of days. But it's up to them now. They say that this is the position they love being in, backs to the wall. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but it's super pressure in a World Cup to actually go through and do it this way.
Backs to the wall, and that's what we've been hearing in the press conferences as well from Mitch Marsh, from Adam Zampa. Adam Zampa, remind you, has COVID-19, but whether he'll feature in the 11 or not, will provide you that update. वसीम हम नेट रन रेट का जिक्र कर रहे थे और पिछले वर्ल्ड कप में ही देखने को मिला था कि साउथ अफ्रीका ने किस तरह से 5 में से 4 मुकाबले अपने नाम किए, उसके बावजूद नेट रन रेट के कारण टीम अगले पड़ाव पर यानी सेमीफाइनल्स में अपनी जगह नहीं बना पाई.
जी आई मीन जब आप टूर्नामेंट का मेघना पहला मैच हार जाते हो तो आपके ऊपर बहुत प्रेशर आ जाता है. और जैसे ऑस्ट्रेलिया 89 रन से मैच हारा है तो उनके नेट रन रेट पे बहुत अफेक्ट हुआ होगा. आई मीन मुझे लगता है कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया वर नॉट स्मार्ट इनफ. मेरे ख्याल से हार जाते, लेकिन शायद वो मार्जिन अगर वो 40 रन का होता है या मे भी 50 रन का होता तो उनका नेट रन रेट थोड़ा सा बेटर हो जाता. But they kept on going for the big shots and they lost by a lot, big margin, and that has affected their net run rate. So in all the other games, मुझे लगता है कि they have to, play smartly. They have to win and they have to win big. और जैसे last World Cup में South Africa के साथ हुआ कि they won 4, but they still didn't qualify because of the net run rate. That could happen to Australia. So Australia have to be very smart from here on. How they approach games. Probably bowling first, getting the teams out and scoring quickly is probably the best way to do it. Then the target. But Australia have been in this kind of position before, and you would expect them to bounce back hard.
And because of the size of the ground, of course, spinners do play quite an important role if they're able to use the bounce to their advantage. In case of Adam Zampa, because now he's got COVID, Stuart, do you expect him to play? And if he does play, or if he doesn't play, who do you expect to see filling in his place?
Well, the reports suggest that it's only minor symptoms. So if it's only minor symptoms, I would think that Adam Zampa takes his place in the team. He's been, an outstanding contributor to the T20 side over the last couple of years and was instrumental in Australia winning in the UAE. So if he's available to get through his 4 overs, it's only 4 overs, which isn't too bad. I'm sure he will stand up. If not, they've still got the likes of Ashton Agar in the squad. Glenn Maxwell can feature a bit more with the ball. But being in Perth, I would envisage that Australia will look to use the big quicks on the fast bouncy wicket. And as you say, the dimensions of the ground, very short straight at Perth Stadium and very long square. So it'll be into the wicket stuff, I think, rib cage ticklers for the Sri Lankan batsmen and to put them uneasy and then go for all-out attack.
And now we'll try and shift our attention to Sri Lanka. वसीम हमने देखा कि किस तरह से स्पिरिटेड टीम के तौर पर श्रीलंका ने एशिया कप में खेला और खिताब भी अपने नाम किया. ऑफ कोर्स टैलेंट है, रॉ टैलेंट है, ब्रिमिंग विद टैलेंट है ये टीम. लेकिन जो कोच होंगे वो कैसे संभालते हैं इस टैलेंट को, और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए भी हो जाता है बिकॉज एशिया कप के बाद उन्होंने मेंशन किया था, सारे प्लेयर्स ने मेंशन किया था, इट्स लाइक ब्रदर्स प्लेइंग फॉर ईच अदर. सो व्हाट रोल डज इट coach in that situation play and what his message could be ahead of this game?
आई थिंक कोच का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. हमने देखा था जब एशिया कप भी चल रहा था, जो क्रिस सिल्वरवुड थे, ऑब्वियसली ही वाज वेरी प्रोएक्टिव. जब हम देख रहे थे बाहर से, वो जो मैसेजेस भेज रहे थे और जो जो भी प्लैंक लेके बैठे थे, तो ऑब्वियसली कोच के का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. जस्ट टू गेट ऑल द बॉयज टू प्ले टुगेदर, चाहे वो बहुत बड़े प्लेयर्स हो या फिर ये यंग टीम जैसे ये श्रीलंकन टीम है. एक अच्छी चीज है ये श्रीलंका की, सब ऑलमोस्ट एक एज ग्रुप के हैं. बहुत ज्यादा सीनियर जूनियर इस टीम में नहीं दिखाई देता. तो मुझे लगता है कि कभी कभी ये टीम के लिए अच्छा होता है कि जब एक सारे एज ग्रुप के होते हैं, कोई बड़ा सुपरस्टार नहीं है, तो बहुत सारे मिल के खेलते हैं. तो ये मुझे लगता है कि शायद ये श्रीलंकन टीम की ये यूएसपी है कि सारे एक लेवल के हैं, एक एज ग्रुप के हैं ऑलमोस्ट. और एक अच्छी चीज उनके लिए ये हुई है कि एशिया कप एक ट्रॉफी उन्होंने जीती है. हमने बात की थी कि जो सिचुएशन चल रही है श्रीलंका में, एक उनके लिए मुझे लगता है कि बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज थी कि वो कंट्री जिस कंडीशन में है, तो उनको बूस्ट करने के लिए, प्लेयर्स को कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ाने के लिए वो ट्रॉफी कितनी महत्वपूर्ण. एंड अगेन वो पहला मैच भी आके हार गए नमीबिया के साथ में. उसके बाद में 3 स्ट्रॉन्ग कमबैक करके मैच जीते हैं. और दिस विल बी द टेस्ट. मुझे लगता है कि ये श्रीलंका के लिए टेस्ट होगा कि हाउ दे प्ले अगेंस्ट ऑस्ट्रेलिया, क्योंकि कंडीशन उनके फेवर में नहीं है. दे गो विथ स्पिन, स्पिन के साथ ज्यादा जाते हैं. हसरंगा, धनंजय डिसिल्वा, महेश तीक्षाना, दे रिलाई ऑन देयर 8 to 12 ओवर्स ऑफ स्पिन. बट पर्थ में शायद वो इतनी हेल्प नहीं मिलेगी. तो it is going to be a test, how they play on this condition.
I'd come back to the point on spin, but Stuart, taking your thoughts on the fact that Sri Lankan coach Silverwood, I mean, of course, he comes from a very different socio-cultural background, but to come with the Sri Lankan team, to join them, to understand what exactly they are going through, and to offer complete support to such a team, bring the best out of such a team, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and look, he joined at a time when the country was in crisis as well. There was a political upheaval. The country was falling apart around the country, and to come in at that time, and cricket is the saviour in Sri Lanka. They all absolutely love cricket. It's much the same everywhere in the subcontinent, but Sri Lanka, they have not much else at the time. They had not much else to look forward to, and they really embraced it. And Chris going in there. The only thing you can do, you go into a different culture. You've got to buy into that culture. You've got to start living that culture. You've got to understand what the players are going through. And I think Mickey Arthur did a fantastic job previously. I'm sure that Chris would have spoken to Mickey about, how to treat or what's the atmosphere, what's it like inside the dressing room. And then he would have just added his own personality to it. So, look, he's done a fantastic job winning the Asia Cup, against some of the powerhouses of world cricket. Is no mean feat, and Sri Lanka, they'll turn up today. They'll have plenty of confidence. They played well the other day. They played well through that qualifying period as well. So they'll turn up with real good confidence. They just recently played a series in Australia earlier in the year, and they weren't disgraced in that by any stretch of the imagination. So they'll go in with no fear, not expecting to win is one of the best positions to be in. In a sporting contest, you got no fear. You go out and play the game you want to play, and it's very dangerous for the team that's supposed to win.
An important update in between, Australia have won the toss and have opted to bowl first. No surprise there, really. But a bit about, of course, Sri Lankan bowling, Wasim, क्योंकि इनएक्सपीरियंस रही है. ये चर्चा एशिया कप में भी चल रही थी कि पेस डिपार्टमेंट में बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद दे नो हाउ टू पंच अबव देयर वेट्स.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. आई मीन जो यंग प्लेयर्स ने रिप्लेस किए थे, जो एक्सपीरियंस चमीरा नहीं थे, लाहिरू कुमारा नहीं थे, तो जो नए लड़कों ने रिप्लेस किया था, दे हैव परफॉर्म्ड. दे हैव टेकन दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी विद बोथ द हैंड्स. जो मधुसूदन थे, उन्होंने फाइनल में आके 3 या 4 विकेट लिए थे एशिया कप में. So they have got really young, very good talent coming through. Whether it's in batting, whether it's in bowling, they've got Kusal Mendes, Rajapaksha. They've got really good players, Nisanka, Charit Asalanka. So they've got really good players. They're good blend of batters and bowlers who can do both. उनके bowling department में भी they've got 6-7 options. They all can bat. Shanaka, Karuna Ratne. So they've got really good mix of all-rounders. So I mean, when you've got that kind of a depth in your squad, then like Stuart said, sometimes when you're not favorites, you play your best cricket, and I think that is what Sri Lanka is probably in. They are not expected to win, and that is a good position. So in fact, Australia will be under pressure. They are playing at home. They are expected to win the cup and defend the title. So I feel sometimes Sri Lanka is in a better place. They're being underdogs.
And the backs against the wall. I'd reiterate that, but in the meanwhile, of course, there have been some changes, and one necessitated by COVID because Adam Zampa does not feature in Australia's 11. It's Ashton Agar who comes in, and for Sri Lanka, it's Nisanka who's back in the 11. So, shortly, we'll also have a look at the playing 11 of both the teams. But we were talking about Sri Lankan bowling attack. Now, Stuart, we've seen that in case of Sri Lanka, there's one thing interesting, and that's Hasranga. He's been the constant in the last couple of
Yeah.
years as far as performances are concerned. He likes the bounce to be low. At Perth, there'd be a lot of it. How do you see him adjusting to those conditions?
Oh, look, class players do. That's what makes them class players. They adjust to their conditions, the surroundings, and the grounds they go to. The one thing with the spin, though, you can't just lob it up on a length. You can't get hit back over your head because the boundary is really short. You've got to drive it into the pitch. Now, Hasaranga's not a tall man. If he bowls it short, it doesn't bounce a great deal, but in Perth it will. It's going to be quite consistent. Spin. Australia do have problems against spin. We saw England struggle somewhat against Afghanistan the other night as well. Mind you, they still won easily, but they still struggled against the spin. The spin really strangled them. So Sri Lanka can take a lot of heart out of that with the Australian batsmen. But Australia, they've just got to play the basics. I think the other night they went too early to the funky. I think they've just got to stay to the basics, and if they do that, they're a powerful unit, and no boundaries are big enough.
एंड वसीम आप तीक्षणा को किस तरह से यूटिलाइज होते हुए देखते हैं बिकॉज हमने फ्रेंचाइज क्रिकेट में देखा है काफी ज्यादा पावर प्ले के ओवर्स के अंदर उनका इस्तेमाल किया जाता है और मैचअप के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी डेविड वार्नर के खिलाफ अच्छा मैचअप बनता है
जी हाँ, मेरे ख्याल से शायद पावर प्ले में हम देखें तीक्षाना को डालते हुए मे भी शायद दे स्टार्ट विद द फास्ट बॉलर्स बट शायद तीक्षाना को 1 या 2 ओवर में भी मिल सकता है। आई थिंक डेविड वार्नर मुझे लगता है श्रीलंका के लिए बहुत की है। अगर वो डेविड वार्नर का विकेट उनको मिल जाता है क्योंकि वो स्पिन अच्छा खेलते हैं और उसके बाद में सारे राइट हैंडर्स है तो वो हसरंगा के लिए भी अच्छा होगा, इवन तीक्षाना के लिए भी आई फील बहुत अच्छा होगा क्योंकि उसके बाद मैथ्यू वेड लेफ्ट हैंडर है बट वो बहुत देरी से आते हैं। So I feel David Warner का wicket will be very very crucial. But again spin श्रीलंका की strength रही है। चाहे हम तीक्षाना की बात करें चाहे हसरंगा की आपने बात की, धनंजय डिसिल्वा bowling करते हैं। They rely almost 8 to 12 overs they bowl of spin. तो यहाँ पे वो किस तरह से bowling करते हैं और किस तरह से how they go about their business क्योंकि उनको second bowling करनी है। Saying that ये थोड़ा देखने जैसा होगा कि how they go about.
And shifting our attention to what Australia have as far as the spin department is concerned, Stuart, were you surprised in the last game Glenn Maxwell wasn't used as much?
It doesn't really surprise me. No, he's a genuine all rounder. His spin bowling has been used sparingly at times. When he's going through a really good patch, they use him quite a lot. But at the moment, he just seems to be down on confidence, Glenn. With a bat in hand, he's trying too much. He's trying too hard. So when your confidence is down, it affects all parts of your game. But Glenn Maxwell's one of those players that he only has to pull off a fantastic piece of fielding, a dive stop, a one-handed catch, whatever it might be, and that all of a sudden his confidence will go through the roof, and you'll probably see a different player when he steps out with a cricket bat, and then he'll be more effective with the ball. But Ashton Agar, he's been the 2IC, if you like, in the spin department in this team behind Adam Zampa. He comes in. One thing, they'll lose a bit in the bowling, but they'll gain more in the batting, more in the fielding. Ashton Agar's a wonderful athlete, and he's a beautiful striker of a cricket ball. So those two areas improve. Bowling not as highly rated as what Adam Zampa is, but he's no mug, that's for sure.
A reminder really to the Ashes tour back in 2013 when he made his thundering debut. Ashton Agar is what we are referring to. We've talked about individual components of these two teams. Let's have a look at how the lineups look. The the playing 11 of Australia and Sri Lanka for this important clash. So, like we'd already discussed, Ashton Agar is making his way in place of Adam Zampa, who's injured, rather who's suffering from COVID-19. So, David Warner, Aaron Finch, Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis, Tim David, Matthew Wade, Ashton Agar, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazelwood. That bowling lineup, particularly the pace department, does look intimidating. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, have Nasanka, Kasal Mendes, Dhananjay De Silva, Charit Asalanka, Bhanuka Rajapaksha, Darshan Shanaka, Manindu Hasaranka, Karunaratne, Thikshana, Fernando, and Lahiru Kumara. So, since Australia have decided to bowl, it's only fair we talk a little more about their bowling and especially their pace department. Of course, big names है वसीम, लेकिन हमने देखा है कि पावर प्ले के अंदर मिचेल स्टार्क की गेंदबाजी का जिक्र करें, पैट कमिंस का जिक्र करें, पिछले एक साल से स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं विकेट्स निकालने में.
जी आई मीन मिचेल स्टार्क पे मुझे लगता है कि बहुत डिपेंड करती है ऑस्ट्रेलिया. शुरू के ओवर्स में ऑब्वियसली जॉश हेजलवुड हैज बीन फैंटास्टिक. ही इज बीन द बेस्ट among those three bowlers. Pat Cummins has really struggled, since IPL. Even in the IPL, he hasn't picked up wickets, and in the death, he hasn't been the best. But Mitchell Stark, मुझे लगता है कि उन पे बहुत ज्यादा उनका वो होता है. जब उनको विकेट नहीं मिलती है, then they obviously struggle. But they've got a lot of all-rounders. They've got Marcus Stoinis, Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell. So they can turn to those, sixth bowler, seventh bowler, if somebody has an off day. So they've got a lot of options. They've been very lucky, and all three fast bowlers can bowl 140 plus. Josh Hazelwood is their bankable bowler. You put him into any condition, and he'll give you those miserly overs and give you 2-3 wickets. But I think Pat Cummins need to step up, since it's a must-win game, and obviously Mitchell Stark as well. If Mitchell Stark picks up wickets at the start, then you don't have to look anywhere else. But they've got three real spearhead fast bowlers.
You mentioned about the options that Australia have at their disposal as far as the fast bowling attack is concerned. We've got plenty of options as we think, as we try and figure out who's the greatest finisher of all time. Now, of course, we'd be taking both your nominations here. Stuart, starting with you, who do you think is the greatest finisher of all time?
Well, I had the pleasure of playing with Michael Bevan, in 50 over cricket, and he was pretty exceptional at channeling a run chase and what have you. But for me, the player that I've really enjoyed watching, demoralise opposition. I've been part of a coaching staff that this player did it to as well. MS Dhoni. When he took us down, and I was with Sri Lanka when he took us down in the World Cup final at Mumbai. That was it was a masterpiece of controlled batting, aggression, but knowing when to put the foot down, knowing who to target. He's the master. Virat Kohli the other night, I've said to a few players, I said to my son, so if you want to learn how to play T20 cricket, just get a copy of that innings. That's how you play T20 cricket. If the West Indies are watching, that's how you play T20 cricket. He had everything. He had technique, grace, power, running between the wickets aggressively. Nothing else you need. I didn't see a reverse sweep. I didn't see a ramp over the keeper's head. I just saw good, pure cricket shots from an absolutely class man. But he runs a very close second. But MS Dhoni for me was unbelievable. He did it too many times for it to be, a fluke.
So 3 names there from Stuart, and Bad Brick 7 did give a lead with the number 7. वसीम, आपके लिस्ट में कितने लोग फीचर करते हैं? टॉप 5 हम आपको अलाउ कर देंगे. 5 आप अकोमोडेट कर ले, मुश्किल हो रहा है मुझे लग रहा है.
Well, I've got those 3 as well. I think pre-T20 era, definitely Michael Bevan. He also did it quite a few times. If Michael Bevan is till the end, Australia is going to win most of the game. I think Javed Miandad also need to feature. I think he was pretty good because he took Pakistan home many a times, and we can't forget that 6 of the last ball. So I think he was pretty good. And MS Dhoni. I mean, in the current lot, MS Dhoni has been outstanding. Again, he did it too many times as well in high pressure game. I think he showed us a template how to finish games. Take the game deep, and then you put pressure on the bowlers. If in the last 3 overs, if they need 35 or 40, that bowlers are going to be under pressure. And MS Dhoni knew that if he connects few sixes, the game is going to be within. Sometimes the batters, take those chances pretty early, and he kind of shown the template. Take the game deep, keep the wickets in, and that's exactly what India did the other day against Pakistan.
Mm.
Hardik Pandya and Virat Kohli took the game deep, 3 overs, 48, and you connect couple of sixes. The bowlers are going to be under pressure. So I think MS Dhoni is definitely numero uno in that. Virat Kohli has to be there. He's been not out 18 times in a run chase, and India has won all 18. So that's 100% success. So I think those 3 or 4 guys has to be in that list.
Now, you both completely agreed with each other's points. There's no room for sledging there. I was looking for an opportunity where the two of you could meet each other's legs. Meanwhile, it's so enriching to hear you two speak. We also impart the opportunity to our viewers to actually pitch in the conversation. They are very popular and they are very busy. So it's difficult to grab hold of them over social media. But CricTracker provides you that platform wherein you can flood in your questions to Wasim, to Stuart, and all our other experts. You have to tag us at CricTracker and use the hashtag BadBrick7. And of course, on social media has been a buzz with this game. There's so much to talk about. Let's see what the netizens had to say in the build up to this clash between Australia and Sri Lanka. What are the sort of conversations that are happening ahead of this clash? So let's have a look at the tweets and what they say about. So, well, then that's our social tracker. And on social tracker, you'd see that there's a comment by Brad Hogg. He says, want to know your thoughts for future T20 games after World Cup. And he wants some rule changes, or probably he's inviting a discussion on them as well. On free hit, should the batter be allowed or not allowed to run if bowled on a free hit? Now, this conversation has been going on for the last couple of days, and for obvious reasons, because of course, India did seal that game and it was a topic of a lot of conversation. वसीम, क्विकली आपके थॉट्स इस पे लेते हैं. ऑफ कोर्स रूल बुक अलाउ करता है और इसलिए 3 रन मिले, लेकिन क्या मिलना चाहिए या नहीं, ये सवाल उठाया है ब्रैड हॉग ने. आपका क्या इस पे, आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया रहेगी?
आई थिंक अभी तक तो यही रूल है कि जब बॉल स्टंप पे लगता है तो आप रन भाग सकते हो. एंड आई थिंक इंडिया वर लकी इन दैट गेम कि वो बॉल लग के गया और भारत ने 3 रन लिए. अदरवाइज अगर वो डेड बॉल हो जाता तो वो 3 रन नहीं मिलते. सिमिलरली जब आपके पैड पे बॉल लगती है या फिर आप कैच आउट होते हो और जो उसके बीच में आप रन भागते हो, वो रन भी काउंट होते हैं. तो आई थिंक इन दैट सेंस अगर आप बोल्ड भी होते हो तो आई थिंक इट शुड बी काउंटेड, अनलेस ऑब्वियसली आईसीसी इंटरवीन्स, क्योंकि ये कहीं ना कहीं ये थोड़ा सा ग्रे एरिया है. एंड आईसीसी नीड्स टू स्टेप इन एंड मेक इट वेरी क्लियर. ये नो बॉल का भी जो इशू होता है कि वेस्ट हाई है या नहीं है, थर्ड अंपायर के पास जाना चाहिए नहीं जाना चाहिए. I think when you've got so much technology available, you got to use it. There should not be an excuse कि थर्ड अंपायर था, आपने पूछा क्यों नहीं. When you've got so many cameras, so many technology available, we should use it.
And Stuart, we've seen, of course, Vaseem mentioned on the importance of getting technology involved, more technology involved. But when it comes to no ball pertaining to height, there is always going to be that bit of arbitrariness.
Yeah, there's always going to be a guesstimate, isn't there? And whether it's in a batsman's stance, or is that stance when they're crouched over or just standing up. There's a lot of grey in a lot of the interpretations of laws in the cricket game that I'd like to see just become black and white, not just grey. Brad Hogg, he's speaking from a bowler, isn't he? He doesn't like going for runs. If he let the ball go, he's actually bowled the batsman out. How can they run, etc., etc. But look, I think it's a free hit. The bowler's transgressed. He's made a massive mistake by going over the front line. For me, it's open slather. If you actually hit the stumps and it goes away for runs, that's just part of the game. Bad luck.
All right, then let's have a look. Then one tweet did invite a lot of conversation, and it was absolutely worth it because it's a topic that is very pertinent at the moment. Let's have a look at the other tweet. And this one talks about Russell Arnold's birthday. It's a wish for Russell Arnold on his birthday. And of course, we from CricTracker as well wish him a very happy birthday. And of course, he's been in social media and also on broadcast media. And apart from that, there's another comment wherein it talks about Sri Lanka having won all last three T20 matches, but Australia hasn't. Australia heading into the World Cup as well wasn't in the best run of form. और इनफैक्ट काफी दिलचस्प था वसीम, बिकॉज एडम जाम्पा ने ये बात मेंशन की थी कि एक बार विश्व कप शुरू हो जाएगा तो वो एक्चुअली वो जो वाइब होता है उसको सोक इन करके अपना ए गेम लेकर आएंगे. But they know when to peak, although it might get too late if they don't start peaking now.
Well, I think New Zealand has surprised them, to be honest, especially that Finn Allen assault जो उन्होंने आके किया था शुरू में, that surprised everyone. First time he's playing the World Cup, first time against Australia in a World Cup event, and he came out and surprised everyone. The way he started hitting, they've got 60 plus in the power play, and Australia was surprised after that. They couldn't come back into the game. Then obviously Williamson played well according to the situation. Then Glenn Phillips came in, and Devon Conway batted the way he always bats. And they literally took Australia out of the game by posting 200. So I think New Zealand kind of surprised them. So that can happen in the World Cup event. One game, like I said before, one game goes against you. Your backs are against the wall. You come into a situation where you need to win all games, and on top of that, Australia have dropped their net run rate so much. So they've got a lot of catching to do. But I think Australia have got, that squad, and they've got that quality to do that. I think they don't need to worry about the net run rate so early, so, too soon in the tournament. They just need to win the games. If they win all the games, I'm sure they'll win with quite a, decent margin. So automatically the net run rate, will improve. But if they go in with that mindset of improving the net run rate so early, you don't want them to lose another game. They'll be out of the tournament. So they don't need to go and thinking in that direction so early.
And Stuart, we've been talking about Australian bowling attack now. Earlier as well, we alluded to the fact that Glenn Maxwell bowling inside the power play overs might impart more balance to Australian bowling because that would allow Pat Cummins to bowl in the middle overs. Do you think that's where his best fields come from?
Yeah, look, I don't think they'd do that today. Sri Lanka do play spin, very well. So I don't think that spin will feature. Here we go. Oh, it probably will now. But Glenn Maxwell, I don't think they'd use Glenn Maxwell. I think if anyone they'll use Ashton Agar up front. I think they'll use Marcus Stoinis, and I hear Mitch Marsh is back fit, ready to bowl as well. So they have got 5 seam options with Marsh and Stoinis, along with the big 3 quicks. And Agar is probably playing instead of Kane Richardson, who is probably a better death bowl than the 3 guys playing today when Stark's not on. Kane Richardson's probably the number 1. But spin. Look, I don't think Australia will turn too much to spin. It'll probably use during the middle overs when they've got be able to have the fielders out. But they'll get them hitting to the long square boundaries. That's for sure. There won't be any lob ups. Well, there shouldn't be any lob ups to be able to hit straight back down the ground.
Well, it's really nice how Stuart was constantly boasting about the pace attack that Australia has, and all of them tall, fast bowlers. और back of the length important हो जाती है because बड़े square boundaries हैं. वसीम, आपको क्या लगता है किन lengths को back करना चाहिए ऑस्ट्रेलियन गेंदबाजों को?
I think length, क्योंकि you've got bounce. जब bounce ज़्यादा होता है मेघना, automatically the side boundaries come into play. When the ball is bouncing so much, you can't hit straight unless you obviously pitch right in front of you. So obviously Australia know that they can't bowl right in front of the bowlers. Nobody does that anyway, and Australia will know hitting the hard length obviously will make it hard because Sri Lanka is not used to that bounce. They don't play on that kind of bouncy pitches. When you turn up to Perth, you turn up only a couple of days to practice, so it's very hard to adjust too early. Australia has been playing there, all their life, so they know what kind of length to bowl and what areas the ball are going to go. You would see a lot of catches going to third man or maybe deep point or even square leg, fine leg. So they know what kind of lengths to hit, and they've got those bowlers. They've got 140 plus bowlers to hit that length and make it hard for the Sri Lankan batters.
All right, then quickly before we close the show, we take your predictions. Bad Brick 7 contest. Now, time for that. Predictions for the winner of this clash between Australia and Sri Lanka. Stuart, you go first.
If Australia stick to the basics, come out, all guns blazing as they have to, they'll be too much for Sri Lanka. So I'm going for Australia.
Am I even surprised there? Wasim, आपका क्या prediction रहेगा?
I think if Sri Lanka posts anything close to 160, I would back Sri Lanka. I think they'll put Australia under pressure, even though Australia is favourites to win. But just because Stuart has said Australia, I'm going to back Sri Lanka.
Awesome.
That ensures equilibrium. There's some balance here. And now time for the poll here on CricTracker. Bad Brick 7 poll. And of course, as far as the team that's going to win, we've had predictions. Now, most wickets. Who will take the most wickets in this Australia-Sri Lanka game? As far as the polls are concerned, it's Valindu Hasaranga who seems to be winning it by a whopping margin, 82%. Aaron Zamba not featuring in this dash, but of course Ashton Agar filling in place of him. Quickly, your predictions again, starting with you, Stuart, and I am pretty sure Wasim is going to take note of what every word comes out here. Stuart, your predictions.
Hasarang is 100% there because Zampa's not playing. Look, my prediction for the player who's going to influence the game most, I think Josh Hazlewood. He had a terrible game the other night by his own standards. I think he's going to be the one who comes out and gets it right. And when he does get it right, a half volley will hit most batsmen in the throat. So it'll be hard to play on this Perth pitch if he gets it right.
Wasim, you're smiling. You have your response ready.
Well, I think Hasaranga, just because the conditions are going to be difficult, but like I said, if Sri Lanka post 160 plus, you would see Hasaranga, getting into the game. He'll make it difficult. He's a smart operator. So yeah, I would go with Hasaranga and probably Marcus Stoinis. I feel he's very underrated. He'll probably get a good bounce in Perth. I think he'll be the fourth fast bowler. So I'm going with, even though Josh Hazlewood is pretty straightforward name, but I'm going with Hasaranga or maybe Marcus Stoinis.
Sri Lanka does have some support here, so Sri Lankan fans needn't be disheartened if they're watching this show. And we are running number of contests because of that. I mean, that's what you'd expect in a World Cup clash, in a World Cup tournament. And the contest alert says that you get to predict the player of the match for the game. And in this case, game between Australia and Sri Lanka, what you have to do is comment your answer by using hashtag BadTrick7, and the deadline is 4:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time today. So you barely got 2 minutes. Predict the player of the match quickly. I take again predictions from my experts that might just prompt and help the viewers toward your predictions.
Australia win. They'll bowl Sri Lanka out for 130 and they'll chase them down in 17 overs.
Oh, that's very precise. And quickly, Wasim, your predictions of the player of the match.
My prediction is probably Dasun Shanaka.
All right, then thank you so much. We've made note of all of those predictions made. You'll be answerable for them in the post game, particularly to the people who made decisions based on your predictions. But thank you so much. It was so much fun to talk to both of you and so enriching.
Meghna, we are cricketers. We are not tarot reader. So we are allowed to make mistakes.
All right, that makes it in favor of you. We'll see the post show. But thank you so much
Very
for
good.
all the comments.
No, thanks for having me.